Y'all, Taylor Schabusiness got sentenced, and we're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. The sofa's back there pretending to be a sofa, and Mr. Roscoe's actually over there underneath the sofa, holding the floor area down for us while we talk, and my name is Paul. Now, today we're going to be reviewing the recent sentencing of Taylor Schabusiness. I have a hard time keeping a straight face every time I say that last name, but it is what it is. So she was finally sentenced for the heinous crimes that she committed, and we're going to talk about it in today's video. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a very quick little overview about what this case is about, and then we're going to review this through watching some video clips of the actual sentencing and then some little articles as well. So let's go ahead and just very briefly talk about what this case was all about. So on February 23rd, 2022, Shad Thyrion's mother made a horrifying discovery. She would find his severed head downstairs in their basement in a bucket. Well, this kicked off, can only imagine, right? I can't imagine being the mother finding that. Now, what would unfold from this story is literally what nightmares are made out of. We would learn that a longtime friend of Shad's, Taylor Schabusiness, had apparently had a substance-induced and fueled evening with him, which resulted in her decimating his body and assaulting it in every way possible. Now, she would be, charged with these crimes, also go to trial. Now, the trial was just as much of a you-know-what show. She went viral for attacking her lawyer before the trial even started, and then her bizarre behavior during the trial and just the atrocities that came out on the stand of what she did to this poor guy literally just made everyone stop and say, what is this? So, that's literally the 60-second version there. This is not meant to be a deep dive into that. I actually did another video on it before. We're just going to talk about the sentencing mostly in this. So, she was convicted of these charges. She was found to be, of sane mind and body and whatnot, and everything as shocking as that is. And so she has recently been up for sentencing. So let's go ahead and look at some clips from that sentencing and use those as talking points. And at the end of the video, I'll go more into some deeper opinions on this.
In this case, when I consider the defendant's character, I can say that over the course of this case, I've learned a great deal about you, Ms. Schabusiness. First of all, you were born in Chicago and lived there until you were about age 10, or 12 rather. You seem to have had a stable childhood. You were loved by your mother and your father and your brother. And unfortunately, your mother passed away when you were 12, your brother passed away in a vehicle accident, and your dad's incarcerated. But I'm confident that all three of them probably still love you very much.
One thing that fascinates me about true crime is the psychological component of it, and whether that's, looking at how victims are thrust into a scenario of, and when I say victims, I'm also referring to the surviving members, family members, and loved ones of the victims, but they're thrust in this, light of, okay, now this is our life, we're fighting for justice for our loved one, or picking the pieces up, or all of those things, and also the psychological component to the people that commit the crimes. What makes them tick? Why do they do it? How far away are all of us from doing something like that? All of those things, and this case did not disappoint in that department. One thing is, you listen to this, and just like the judge said, while Taylor did suffer loss and things of this nature in her lifetime, it could have been a lot worse, right? She had all these key components there that even a lot of people don't have, right? Family that loves her, this relatively normal childhood in many different ways. And so it just adds further fuel to the flame of why and how did she end up at these heinous acts. Also, to go into court for sentencing wearing that spit mask, not a cute look.
Her father's employment was transferred to Green Bay when she was about 12 years old, and hence began the contact Ms. Schabusiness had with this community. She attended Bayport High School. At about 16, she moved to Texas to live with her grandfather. She graduated from high school in Cotulla, Texas, and eventually came back to Green Bay because she missed her father and her brother, which again doesn't surprise me any because, as I've indicated, I think they both love her very much.
Now, she's very fortunate to have that much love in her life and continuing all the way through this. When we heard the father would get up there and speak on her behalf and whatnot, many people can't say that. And so again, it furthers my interest in the psychological aspect of these cases and whatnot, trying to figure out what made made you go to this depth? The superficial level that is brought to, by the defense and whatnot is, oh, the drugs and this and that, but this doesn't pass the vibe check, and they will say that's not an excuse, and it's not, because oftentimes many people do a variety of substances, and they do not exhibit the behavior that Miss Schabusiness, as the judge calls her, did in this heinous case.
If you sit in this courtroom long enough, you'll realize that you should never take your family for granted, because so many people come in sitting in that chair in an orange jumpsuit and have absolutely no one who will come in and say, I'm with her. And that takes a little bit of fortitude to come in and do that. And frankly, today she's got extended family that comes in and does that for her, because her direct family are unable to do that for various reasons. And so I think that speaks to Ms. Schabusiness's character, because there's people in this world who find value and worth in her, that they're willing to come in and stand behind her. So I think that reflects on character.
Again, it just poses the question even more. So how did we end up here? Now remember, she did lose her mother at one point during her life. Her father was incarcerated during the trial. So there's things like this going on. But again, like the judge said, to have extended family and anyone to get up and speak on her behalf when you're charged with the kind of stuff that she did does speak volumes as to how they feel about her and how they care about her. And again, even in crimes of lesser, heinousness and whatnot, you don't see people with anybody to speak for them. So fascinating that she had this plethora of people willing to back her up. Now here we're just going to refer to a quick little article to expand on that a little bit. It says relatives speaking on her behalf included her father, who insisted that she is not a monster and that drugs turned her into a zombie. I know that she committed a crime and that they want her to pay for it, her grandmother Esther Coronado told the court via video link, but I believe she should have the opportunity to come back to society one more time and be with her son. Remember, Taylor doesn't only leave, this devastation there, but she had a son. She has people that obviously love her, but then she also devastated and destroyed Shad's family as well as Shad and his remains. It was completely disgusting. Let's continue to look at some of those clips, and we're going to hear a surprise later on at some of the family members, what they have to say when they speak out during victim impact statements to Taylor.
But quite frankly, as far as this incident and these events go, I think I've spoken to this already in prior hearings, but the fact of the matter is, when I watched the interview with law enforcement shortly after these events, I observed someone who was lucid, understanding what was going on, was tracking what was being asked of her, her answers were tracking. Everything seemed to be together at that moment. I don't really see the influence of drugs. No, it doesn't mean it's not there, but I didn't see it in that interview, which is the most close proximity to the events of this night that we have.
Now, the interview that he is referring to was a shocking piece of evidence in this case. Like he said, it was very close to the chain of events, and she's laughing, she's joking, she's talking about the horrifying thing she did to this young man's body and kind of making a mockery out of it and almost like a charge it to the game kind of a thing. And you're sitting here as an onlooker like, what? How did we arrive here? And this is what the judge is saying too. I mean, that's a common theme with this is so over the top, so crazy, but yet she was so lucid, knew exactly what she's talking about, exactly what she's doing, tried to hide the crime. It's so rare to see this behavior out of a female, which is what made it even more shocking. This is Jeffrey Dahmer type stuff, and we'll be talking about Jeffrey Dahmer, her idol, here in a minute.
I've heard about Ms. Schabusiness's mental health history. I've read stacks and stacks of mental health records that have come in as recently as a few days ago. And I read them over, which allowed me to learn even more about Ms. Schabusiness and about her character and who she is as a person. I've heard about her son who lives in Texas, and I'm absolutely convinced that she loves her son. going to say more about that in a minute, but that's a piece of who she is because she's a mom.
And the judge is bringing all this up, and I'm glad that he is bringing this up. If you pay attention to her eyes and the things that she speaks so much volume with her eyes, right? And she did this during court, and you saw when he said the thing about her son, and she kind of like squinted her eyes at him. There's something about her eyes that I feel like I'm looking into pure evil. You know, and you know what it reminds me of is the thing, if you follow the franchise, the Halloween movies, where they talk about Michael Myers' eyes and like that pure evil and all that. That's what that reminds me of, and it's very spooky to watch. Now here we're just going to read this quick excerpt here, and this just goes over to reiterate some of what the jury found and whatnot here. And it says, jurors who deliberated less than an hour in July convicted Taylor Schabusiness of the February 22nd murder of Shad Thyrion in July. The jury also found that Schabusiness did not suffer from mental illness during the murder, meaning that she will spend her sentence in a prison and not a mental health facility. So again, this combined with what the judge just said, I mean, you heard it, there's none of that seemed to be going on, at least in the eyes of the law and the jury.
I was a little bit put off by a statement that I read in the pre-sentence investigation report, frankly, from her father. He said on page 17 of that report, "I feel like the system could have helped Taylor and kind of failed her as well." And I reflected on that because it's difficult to understand who people refer to when they say the system fails people. Because you know what? It's not the job of the system to raise people's children. The system tries to do that. The system is not perfect. Like our fight against methamphetamine is not perfect, but we carry the fight on.
I love that he said this and brought this to attention, because so often we see this. It reminds me of the Darrell Brooks case, where everything is put onto the state like it was their responsibility to raise, these perpetrators. And it's, like, I view it like this: the state will step in when the job at home has failed, right? Or has not been able to take place. The state will step in, but it's not their responsibility to do this at all. So for the father to sit here and play this off on them, on, the state, that's not an answer either. And so I appreciate the judge bringing this aspect up.
Again, I guess it's the system that's done something, but it all starts, frankly, at somebody's home and what they have to offer to their children. And so anyways, I reflect on that.
And again, just to expand on that, like he said, it starts at home and what's offered to the children. And if at home there is nothing there offered and the child is to go astray, okay, well then maybe at that point that child's going to go down a path of where the state will step in eventually and that type thing. And then it is left up to really said person to utilize this chance. Do you want to, use this chance as a springboard to do better? Where are you at? Because clearly she had every opportunity here. If it was, the state should have been doing this and that and blah, 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 blah. I mean, clearly she has people that love her, right? So again, it can be a little bit more nuanced than all that, and I understand and respect that. But just to sit here and say, it's the state's fault, sorry, to me seems like a way to maybe alleviate oneself of responsibility for the actions, as well as possibly just embarrassment and shame.
I'm also convinced that, no one is responsible for where they come from, but you are responsible for where you're going. So there's a lot of tragedy that has occurred in Miss Schabusiness's life. There really is. I've already reflected on some of that, and it almost seems as if you could apply the phrase, "she never had a chance."
Now, I like the statement that he made at the beginning of this segment of, you have to be in charge of where you're going. And he does acknowledge, yes, there's been a lot of tragedy. And I do think that could paint a lot of the direction that takes place, because at the end of the day, life can be hard, right? Not everyone gets the same starting place in life. This is a sad fact, right? Now, in some avenues, she had more things than other people might not have had. She went through as well as some experiences that other people might not have gone through. That's just life, right? And so you have to kind of take charge of that at some point, and accountability, and say, what direction do I want to take this in? And I think that that's where the judge is trying to go with this is, look, there's got to be some accountability here. A, B, and C happen, and that's not fair, and that sucks, and I get that, and that can paint a trajectory. But at a certain point, you have to take control of that and say, this might have happened. How can we turn this around? How can we move forward?
To Miss Schabusiness. But as I said, you're not responsible for where you come from, but you are responsible for the choices you make about where you're going. And Mr. Business has got to be held responsible for that. And this is the ending of a process that is doing just that. At the same time, I'm absolutely convinced that, irrespective of the sentence that Ms. Schabusiness gets, which in light of these charges is going to be a life sentence, every human being has the ability to move forward and find meaning in their life, and Ms. Schabusiness has that opportunity.
Now, this is what I'm talking about. She can move forward, she can go forth, she can change behind bars and that type of thing if that's possible. My prediction on this is we might not see that come about with her for quite some time. I do think that she is a troubled person and, has obviously gone through a lot, has obviously caused a lot of troubles, and this could take a while to let that set in and move forward if she chooses to do that at all.
When there's been such a death or a violation, but in this case, it seems different. In this case, you seem to run out of superlatives when describing what happened in this case. You really do. The list of superlatives don't seem to measure up to what you see and what you hear about, and what we heard about in the trial. This crime offends human decency, it offends human dignity, and it offends the human community. It really does.
Now, the fact that the judge used the word human, because it's so right, down to the level of this is like a crime against human decency. The things that she did to this man, you run out of superlatives. It gives me goosebumps. The fact that his mother had to find him in this condition and learn of what happened and then hear the things that she did to his remains after she had done what she did to him is absolutely disturbing. And that's what I'm talking about when earlier in the video is, these things that she did, and then to be like, look, for the most part, she had some bad things that happened to her, but literally we're talking about a lucid, sane person doing these things. It makes it that much more worse. Now we're going to just quickly review a little article here that goes into a little bit more of this. So throughout the trial, prosecutors alleged that Schabusiness fatally strangled Thyrion in the basement of his mother's Green Bay home after the pair smoked methamphetamines and began to have relations with one another. Schabusiness admitted to police that after she dismembered and abused Thyrion, she got lazy and put his severed head and his male genitalia in a 5-gallon bucket before leaving the house. Later, Thyrion's mother, Tara, testified during the trial that she found the bucket covered by a beach towel and called 911 when she looked inside. She found the severed head of her son in the basement, her boyfriend Steve said, told a 911 dispatcher, and a call played during the trial. There's something in the GD bucket. Now this was bad enough. This is tame compared to the other things that she did and that came out in court testimony. My heart breaks for the victim, obviously, and then his mother and those family members and people who really loved him that had to hear of his demise. Absolutely unnecessary.
But at this time, given all the factors that I have to consider, it's the decision of this court and the judgment of the law that Ms. Schabusiness be sentenced as follows. As to in 22 CF 363, count 1, that's the first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater. It's a Class A felony. I'm going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision. I believe that's appropriate in light of the findings that I've already made. As far as count 2, mutilation of a corpse as a repeater, Class F felony, I'm going to adopt the recommendation of the pre-sentence investigation writer, 7.5 years of initial confinement followed by 4 years of extended supervision. That'll be consecutive to count 1. As far as count 3, third-degree sexual assault as a repeater, Class G felony, I'm going to impose 3 years of initial confinement followed by 4 years of extended supervision. That will be consecutive to count 2 and count 1. As far as the revocation cases, I'm going to impose 1 year of incarceration on each of those counts. Those will run concurrent to the other offenses. I've reviewed, as I've indicated, reviewed both of the pre-sentence investigation reports. There's certainly valuable things in them. I'm going to, as conditions of supervision, I'm going to require no contact with the victim's family, maintain absolute sobriety. a complete SOT assessment and treatment follow-through, obtain and maintain full-time employment. To the extent there's ever supervision, GPS monitoring, I'm going to require an AOD assessment and follow-through, psychological evaluation and follow-through. The recommendations that are contained in the pre-sentence investigation report submitted by the defense indicates or suggests that there be services engaged in for substance abuse and other mental health issues. That's a reasonable suggestion, and I think I've encompassed it in the recommendations that I made, which is there needs to be a compass evaluation and follow through with any treatment recommendations that are proposed. But again, an AODA assessment and follow through and psychological evaluation so that Ms. Schabusiness can get the help that she needs while she serves this sentence.
Now, I know that was a little bit of a longer clip, but I wanted to put up and show the entire sentencing and the speech the judge gave with that, because I do think he balanced this out nicely, not only to protect the community, but to get her the resources and the structure that she might be able to utilize to get the help that she needs, just like he said. Now, again, I think, like I said earlier, I think it will take probably a long time for that to sink in. Just judging from her behavior that we saw during trial and whatnot, I don't know how seriously she takes any of this. I'm not sure, how things are upstairs for her in the context of just, look at the situation that she caused, right? Look at the crime she committed. And so I think it could take a while for that to do so. But at least the judge has tried to, within his power, put into place these necessary things for her to get help, right? Because I think so oftentimes incarceration isn't about, at least here in the States, it's not about getting a person ready to re-enter society, even if, I know this case isn't one such that she's probably gonna ever get free, but regardless, it's more about punishment and not rehabilitation, and it really should be about both of those, right? Getting rehabilitation, doing your time, that kind of thing, whatever it is, but also, especially for these cases where the person could be re-entering society, preparing them for that so that they do stand a chance. So not only for themselves, but for society and the community in general. Now we're going to take a moment and listen to some testimony or some words from some of the victim impact statements. So let's go ahead and listen to those.
If you could just tell me your name first, sir.
Shad Thyrion, Shad's uncle. I basically just wanted to say that there's no excuse for what you had done. I don't care if it's drugs or upbringing, We all go through hard times growing up, at least the majority of us have. You have the opportunity to change that. You have the opportunity to see that you have a problem. I've been in recovery a little over 3 years in AA. I drank for 41 years. I realized I had a problem. So there's just, basically to me, you took the easy way out. It's you did the most cowardly, weakest things that you could do possible. You meet a person in school, you say he's your friend, you become friends, become girlfriend, boyfriend, lovers, gain his trust. An innocent person that's very kind, would do anything for you. And I believe you used that and you had this plan and took your opportunity when you did. There's no excuse, I don't see it no other way. To take advantage of someone's kindness like that, that's like the most irritating thing for me. You get to know somebody, they trust you, and then you do that. And then you say that you're a friend, you're his friend, you said that in the statements. It's like, man.
And I agree with him here. Now, again, that was Shad's uncle. And for him to say, taking advantage of someone's niceness, really irritated him with this. 100%, right? And we see that so often in many of the cases that we watch where the perpetrator has honed in and, oftentimes will do this because they're able to take advantage of someone's niceness, their relationship, the trust, the naivety, whatever it might be, right? And then they do something heinous like this. Now, also of interest, as you heard him say that he's been in recovery for 3 years, he drank for 41. So first and foremost, good for him. Congratulations. That's very hard to overcome, and I think that's awesome. But he brings up an excellent point where he's like, almost like, what's your excuse, right? There is none. He's like, you could have chosen to do other things, but you chose not to. Just like like I said earlier, there's lots of people who abuse substances, or whatever, food, whatever you want to call it. They don't do this kind of stuff though, right? This is a particular thing to Miss Schabusiness. Now let's listen to some of his closing words here in this, and then get on to that little conversation about Jeffrey Dahmer.
So that name Taylor Schabusiness fits you well. Now I'm not a praying man, but after Judge Walsh's sentences today, I will pray that you meet the same fate as your idolistic Jeffrey Dahmer.
Amen, brother. I mean, he called it out there. Now, if you didn't watch the trial and whatnot, what he's referring to is this little crush that she seems to have on Jeffrey Dahmer. And we're going to refer to a little article here and just read it to, get us all on the same page about it. So it says, prosecutors also detailed to jurors Schabusiness' obsession with Jeffrey Dahmer, which included taking selfies with the photo of the serial killer. Former Green Bay Police Lieutenant Jenna Luberta testified that she found several Dahmer-related photos saved on Schabusiness' phone, as well as about 24 online searches about the Milwaukee murderer, infamous for killing and dismembering 17 men between 78 and 91. The searches were things like Jeffrey Dahmer, Jeff Boyardee, Jeffrey Dahmer's butt, Jeffrey Dahmer walking into court all sexy, Luberta said about Schabusiness' search history. So there you have it. Yeah, I mean, again, the case just, it keeps giving in this bizarre way all the way down to this. I mean, those Google searches, can you imagine? Let's continue. Now, on this little finale of the video, if you will, I want to talk about Shad's father and what he had to say. We're going to start with a little clip here, a little news article, and then we'll listen to something from the sentencing. So it says, decapitation victim's dad pleads for leniency for sex killer. This is by Pilar Melendez, and let's get into it.
It does no good for me to hate you, you know. I know you got a heart. I know you got a mind. I wish you no harm, and I hope things go well for you. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you.
Again, so creepy watching her look over that little spit mask, but better man than me, right? I'm just going to call that out. He gave a very eloquent speech about, what he just said. He doesn't wish her any harm. He had a lot of compassion, and he actually asked for leniency for her. I found that to be very interesting, and it also, to me, speaks a lot as to the character that you can imagine, though we didn't get to know him, that Shad was. And let's just expand a little bit more on what the father had to say. He says here, everybody makes bad choices, and I think there's a lot of hope for you, Michael Thyrion, the father of 24-year-old Shad Thyrion, said of Taylor Schabusiness during an extraordinary appearance in Brown County Circuit Court on Tuesday. I know you've got a heart. I wish you no harm. And again, like I just said, I think this probably speaks volumes as to the type of person that Shad was for the many of us that only got to know him through this case. To hear his father get up here and say this, it says a lot, right, about probably the values and morals and whatnot that he taught his son. And so there's that. Obviously, this case is insane, right? I do not think that she'll ever probably see the light of day. I have a feeling she'll probably be right at home for quite some bit. She does seem to have extraordinary behavior, right? You saw her, she attacked the judge. She sat there during court laughing and just bizarre, inappropriate behavior. The crime itself, she's brought into sentencing with a spit mask on. She has a long way to go if she's to ever say, you know what, I want to do and be the best that I can behind bars. Now, like I said earlier, I think the judge has lined things up for her to be able to do that if she chooses to use this opportunity to do so. Now, I'm curious what you think. What did you think of Shad's father's speech, and him asking for leniency? What did you think of Shad's uncle? What did you think of her behavior during this? Let me know down in the comment section. Roscoe, as usual, he asked you to drop some sofas down there for him so that we can hang out on those little sofas in the comment section. And until we do gather down there and do all that stuff I just talked about in the comment section, I'll see y'all there.